Good afternoon. We are going to call this workshop of the Martin County School Board to order. If you would like, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Helmy, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Russell. Here. Mrs. Roberts.
Yes.
Mrs. Pritchett.
Here.
Dr. Moriarty.
Here.
Mrs. Power.
Here. Thank you. Okay, we had a couple of updates to the agenda. Item 6.11 has been updated, and items 6.04 and 6.05 have been removed. All right, we are going to take item 6.11 first because we have our law enforcement officers here. Thank you all for being here. In case there are any questions, we'll go ahead and take that first so they can all get back to work. All right. Do I have any questions from the board on policies 5514 and 7514, which are use of personal transportation devices? This is a new policy. Questions, comments? Ms. Roberts?
So, I know, so I'm going to start with 5514. So 5514 is the student policy that would deal with students, and the companion policy is the 7514, which would deal with other people on our campuses, which would include whether it's a renter, whether it's not people. So 5514 is like code of conduct, and the other one is considering everything else that's going on. And it appears that the first option, the definition of personal transportation devices first includes bicycles, scooters, skateboards, etc., and then it goes on to the e-bikes and gas-powered or electric motors. But the first option is outlawing everything, saying that there's a clear and present danger, etc., and everything would be denied. And I'm not interested in that one because if we selected that first option, we would be saying you couldn't even have a bicycle. So the second option is the one that I am more interested in, and it has the one option it has in the second option at the paragraph at the bottom of the page is talking about 2 miles per hour or any miles per hour that you would want to pick. But that's the one I'm interested in, and I don't know how the rest of you feel. 2 miles an hour is okay with me. I don't think you can skateboard or ride a bike much faster than that, but I don't know what you all think. I don't know if anybody agrees first that we shouldn't do the first option and then where you want to go in the second one.
So I guess I want to ask our staff, because I believe that currently, if you're riding a bike or a skateboard, or there's hoverboards and scooters, those can, that you get to a certain point and you have to walk your bike or you have to walk your skateboard onto the campus. So they're not physically riding their bike into campus. So I just want to be careful that we're not changing that.
So the way I read it, we would have to change that, but this would also, you would say that you can't bring onto campus something that goes, you can't have a speed that exceeds 2 miles an hour. So I think we would have to add another sentence to that. But the reason that the second policy is there is because that takes into account things that aren't our students. So that's the Hidden Oaks Middle School parking lot on weekends, or the Jensen Beach parking lot on weekends, or somebody renting, using a facilities rental and renting something on campus. Imagine if somebody rented the gymnasium or something, and then because they're not covered as a student, now they can ride e-bikes to go to a performance there. So that's where the second policy comes in for the other one. But I think we would have to add language, if we said the 2 miles an hour, whatever it is, we would have to add language on there that says that when they're on campus, it would have to be walked. I mean, that would be, and I'm okay with that.
And
It does say, upon the request of an administrator, the operator of an electric-powered transportation device will dismount the device and walk the device to the appropriate storage area. So it does say that.
And right now, they're walking there. Anything that they ride on, whether it's electric or it's not electric, correct? There is a point that the students get to, and that happens at every school, right?
Supposed to be happening at every school, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I don't think it necessarily is, because I think they're riding their bikes all the way up to the bike storage area. They're not stopping and walking it on campus, they're riding it, which I think is what creates part of the problem, is so that if Marcia's riding a pedal bike and I'm rich and I can afford an e-bike, she's riding her bike pedaling along and I'm riding my bike whizzing past her to get up to the storage thing.
My recommendation would be very similar to the board's specificity with the cell phone policy, so that then we know where we would need appropriate staff for monitoring purposes. I think that's different at every school site, which is probably leading to the inconsistency of where they can have staff monitoring and how far onto a campus one could potentially ride before they encounter the first staff member that says you need to be walking, you know, your scooter or whatever it is. So clarification within the policy that can then be aligned to the student code of conduct on where that threshold would be, so that we can have a staff member present.
Right, because the way this is written now is the administrator would be the one determining whether you're walking or not walking.
Right.
And I think I looked to Deborah Riley, I think that creates a issue of even conflicting administrators. I mean, you have one administrator that yesterday let me ride all the way to the thing, and the next day my administrator's telling me you need to be walking. I mean, so I don't know what they think or what you think.
What I think we should do, and what I would like to do, is pull together student services and work through that the same way we worked through that with the cell phone policy, determine what would be reasonable and manageable for staff, and to bring this back to the board for additional consideration.
That's good. And can you bring back, I mean, and I'm interested in the other one too. I don't know about the rest of you, but I think we need to have them both hand in hand so there isn't a.
Yes, we can.
And I guess I'm interested to hear what the sheriff's department thinks about this. Is there a little button on, is this one?
There we go. That might be it
there.
there. How you doing? I'm Lieutenant David Roscoe, the Martin County Sheriff's Office. I have Sergeant Blazek here with me. The Sheriff's Office is in strong support of any policies you guys would have limiting the use of e-bikes on school property specifically. Not necessarily bicycles, but electric bicycles. State legislators are currently reviewing, there's a bill in front of them to limit the use of e-bikes for ages under 16 years old. So that may be something for you guys to consider as well, that it may come from the state level even.
Does anybody have questions for?
You're saying that your belief is that they shouldn't be permitted on school grounds at all?
We are in the process working with the MPO right now to try to make a limit countywide, an ordinance at least, and it's our side that we're looking to make it so no operation of e-bikes whatsoever for ages under 16 years old.
Okay.
So at that point, that would limit. Now, obviously you have high school kids that are 16, 17, 18, maybe 19 years old that are on property that it would not apply to them as far as the ordinance is concerned, but it would apply though to your elementary schools, middle
That would
schools.
limit elementary and middle school students.
Okay.
Again,
Thank you.
and this is, we're kind of trying to reflect a little bit what the House bill has already presented to the state that would limit these elementary schools anyway from being able to operate these e-bikes.
Okay, thank you.
Because, yeah, so, yeah, because the MPO specifically did not take up this issue because they wanted to wait for Tallahassee to come up with something if they were, and then they were gonna take it up. So just timeline-wise, I wonder where we're gonna fit with all of this, because we obviously don't wanna go against Tallahassee, and kinda wanna be in line with them and with the MPO. So they're gonna take it up probably in April.
Yes, they have another, I don't remember the exact date, but now ordinance-wise, legally, we can be more restrictive than what state statute
Right,
does
like we
allow.
did that with the cell phone
So,
policy too, yeah.
Correct, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my thing. We can be more restrictive, and I don't think they're going to be as restrictive as we are. And I'm fine saying that anyone 16 that has a license, they're the only ones. They have to have a license, a driver's license to operate an e-bike on our campus. The same as you would a motorcycle or any other. So if they are 16 and they have a driver's license and they ride their e-bike and they are responsible, and we don't have to call the sheriff's department about the way they're behaving, then I think they should be able to ride their e-bike onto campus.
And I know statutory, that's another one they were looking at, addressing on that end or ordinance-wise, maybe not necessarily the driver's license, but at least have some form of government-issued identification on them when they're operating an e-bike.
Well, and I was thinking about this, because don't you still have to take a special class to get a license to drive a motorcycle?
Yes, ma'am.
So, I mean, it would seem to me that the e-bikes should have to follow that same licensing requirement.
Yeah,
Then go to
but
the
for
mall and do the practice in the parking
Well,
lot.
for the motorcycle side, the reason for that though is because now you're officially a registered vehicle to operate on the roadways, the higher speeds, and things like that. So that's why they mandate the motorcycle safety course in order for them to operate and actually get a motorcycle endorsement on the driver's license. But right now, the state of Florida doesn't recognize any e-bike endorsement or something along those lines.
Madam Chair, the MPO meeting is April 20th. Myself, Frank, and he doesn't know this yet, but Don Calderon will be attending that meeting, and we will bring forward the board's thoughts to that meeting.
Go ahead.
Will we just move this to May? Bring this back?
I don't know that I want to move it to May. I would like to have our first reading, because if we move it to May, then we won't have a policy in place before school starts and have time to get it into our student code of conduct. I think we can tweak it a little bit between now and the beginning of when we need to have all those documents ready. But if we slow down the process now on our end, we won't have a policy in place. And I'm fine being more restrictive. Everyone else is.
Helmets?
Absolutely. Helmets required. I think that
By-
helmets are
That's also
required for
by
bikes.
state statute, correct?
Yes, yes.
For any operator under the age of 16.
Well, I
That-
mean,
that's
it's only
currently
gonna
already
be
in
over
effect.
16, but I mean, I think that if they're operating it on our campus to come to school and they're over 16, I think they should be wearing a helmet.
Yes.
I mean, and I really don't even, I don't really even think it's too restrictive to say that they have to pass the motorcycle safety thing and get the motorcycle endorsement. Because I do know that that motorcycle safety thing does teach you about balance and those of operating something that's moving fast, that you need some balance to. It's not the same as driving a car where you're.
But now this is also my experience as a police motorcycle operator for 18 years. I'm actually a police motorcycle instructor as well. It's very different though between the operation motorcycle-wise and bicycle-wise. So I understand where you're coming from on that, but it's apples and oranges really
So-
comparing the two of them.
So then if you
Now,
were.
the safety laws, yes, that's an important side of it though, as far as understanding the way streets and you have to operate on sidewalks and stop signs and how to read those and how to properly negotiate or navigate those types of obstacles, then yes, but.
So if I were your 16-year-old daughter and my grandmother gave me an e-bike for Christmas, do you feel that if I had a learner's permit or a driver's license, I am now qualified to hop on the e-bike, strap on my helmet, and drive down the road?
By state statute, there's no difference,
By your
though.
standard as a parent, would you think that,
I mean, I'm, me personally, I think I'm at a different level on that, because my kids all ride dirt bikes, they understand, they ride motorcycles at this point, legally, off-road, not in the roadways or anything like that, but, again, just knowing the difference in operation, when you're talking a motorcycle, you're talking 500-600 pounds of metal at a minimum going down the roadway versus a 60-pound bicycle too, so there's a lot of
so the
dynamics
speed
difference.
doesn't bother you, it's just the weight of the,
It's not the way, it's comparing a Ferrari to a smart car, it's not even close to trying to say performance-wise and what it actually can do.
Well, I think the real danger is in the difference between a dirt bike and an e-bike is people on sidewalks. Because we get buzzed every morning when I'm out walking in the mornings by e-bikes because they're on the sidewalk, they're not on the road, but also their total disregard for traffic laws when you come to an intersection that if you were on a regular road would probably be a four-way stop, but they're on a sidewalk, so they buzz by and people pull out, you almost hit them. There's a lot of things that are different, but I think it's the cars that they would potentially connect with if they make a bad choice, and the other people that are walking. Because when I was in middle school, we had a student that got hit by a bike, just a regular pedal bike. If one of the e-bikes hits a child walking down the sidewalk, it could be catastrophic.
I completely agree on that. And also too, just to clarify, so a lot of these e-bikes that you guys are seeing, and we are dealing with them as well, they're classified, people are calling them e-bikes because they're an electric bike of some sort, but they're referred to as like an e-moto, which fall outside the classification of what it is that we're actually talking about. These e-motos, they don't have pedals on them, they can go up to 80 miles an hour on some of the models. An e-bike, by state statute, can only at maximum, we have class 1, 2, and 3 at a maximum, can only operate at 28 miles per hour. Again, some of these e-motos that you're seeing coming down the sidewalk, and again, we're stopping them because they're considered off-highway vehicles. They're not legal for them to be operating in the first place on the sidewalks. So that's something that we are addressing. And under the current House bill as well, they're looking to actually, because they're not deemed officially motorcycles, air quotes on that one is the way to put it, but statutorily, they're not officially deemed as a motorcycle, but if the House bill goes through from the way I read it and was proposed, those would actually be deemed motorcycles, and at that point would lead to the motorcycle endorsement and stuff like that being required if they were to be operated. So again, so there's a fine line though, but it's not a fine line. There's a definitive line that says this is actually considered an e-bicycle that's legal to operate on the roadways and on the sidewalks. And there's these other ones that we've seen out here, a lot of the kids that ride, they look like obviously looks like a hybrid dirt bike bicycle is for the most part of those that you see.
I guess, but still, if a child got hit by an e-bike going 28 miles per hour, they would be
It's still gonna
hurt.
hurt, very much so, yes.
They would be hurt, and if they hit their head.
And that's part of the legislation, again, is to limit those young kids that wouldn't potentially even have a driver's license or have the ability to obtain a Florida driver's license to not be able to also operate these bikes that do travel at those speeds.
Thank you. So, Dr. Moriarty?
Yes. Lieutenant, so what if someone's not really aware, what are some of the things that maybe people aren't aware of that you're seeing happening in our county with these type of things?
Most of the injuries we see is a result of no helmets. Because again, I think we all grew up in an age too. Helmets weren't a cool thing. They're not very stylish to wear, but fortunately, they're something that helps keep these children protected. And even as adults, so now if I ride an e-bike, I wear a helmet too, just because, again, the chances of falling and getting injured are significantly greater when you're traveling at these speeds. But again, violations-wise that we see, most of this is going to be intersection related. Again, coming down the sidewalk, somebody pulling out of, for example, Martin Highway, they're pulling out of the Publix parking lot, and here comes an e-bike down the sidewalk or even in the bicycle lane. It's just something that we're not looking for at all times because they're a little bit smaller of an object traveling at a higher speed. But that's typically what we're seeing though, is intersection-related crashes and operators not wearing helmets.
Thank you.
So if I hear correctly from the board is that we will not allow e-bikes or moto-bikes on our campuses unless the student is 16 and has a driver's license, not a learner's permit, but a driver's license, and must wear a helmet. Is that the consensus of the board? Okay. So,
And real quick, just to be clear, those e-motos, they are not legal to be operated, period, as it is.
Okay.
Like even off-school property, if they're driving down any of the sidewalks, they are not legal. They are only legal to be operated on private property.
perfect.
probably should say
Yes,
Yeah,
Yeah,
just to be clear on all
ever.
them, so yes.
ever.
Yeah, because statutory, so your definitions for your e-bikes is, the blanket on all of them is 750 watts or less for motor power. They must be operated with, have functional pedals to operate, and 28 miles per hour on a class 3 is as fast as they can go. Class 1 and 2 can operate up to 20 miles per hour. So if it does not meet any of those parameters or goes beyond any one of those parameters, then it would be considered or deemed illegal.
Okay. So I don't know how detailed we need to get in our policy, but if we can talk to our attorney about that, that would be good. And then on 55, anybody have any questions on the other policy that's 5514? Any specific comments on that one? Or, I'm sorry, 7514?
it should just be the same.
Yeah. Okay. All right, perfect. So this will come back to us. Obviously, we'll have the sheriff take a quick look at this policy before it comes back to us in final form. Wonderful. Thank you very much for being
Thank you.
here.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
All right. Now we'll get back to our regular meeting. We'll have, next up, we'll have our employee benefits update. Oh, I forgot public comment. Hey, I'm sorry, can I just stop for 1 second? I'm gonna backtrack to public comment because I forgot to do that before. Do I have anyone here that wishes to speak? Do we have any public comment? All right, never mind. Come on up, guys.
Just kidding.
You all can have a seat, and those microphones are connected, so you'll just have to have someone driving your slideshow.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Maine Don Calderon, Director of Risk Management and Employee Benefits, Martin County School District, and alongside me sitting is Dustin Keene, our Senior Benefits Consultant with the Garing Group, and Gabrielle Swain, our Benefits Consultant. So we are here again today for the third month. We wanted to give you an update on where we are for our employee benefits renewal for the 26-27 plan year. We only have one line of insurance coverage up for renewal this year, and that is the medical insurance. So just to kind of recap where we were here a month ago on February 3rd. We presented the claims through December, and we presented the Cigna renewal options. We're here today, and we had some follow-ups from that February 3rd board workshop that we're going to go over with you all this afternoon, and then also give you an update as to the insurance committee's recommendations as we met last week on February 23rd. So the main takeaway that staff and Garing Group worked on since we last saw you on February 3rd was to go back to Cigna and request that 0% increase on the high deductible health plan. So Dustin is going to go over it in just a few minutes, but Cigna has honored this request, and they have provided an option with a high deductible health plan at a 0% increase for the 26-27 year. And Dustin will go over what that looks like and some additional options that will be presented before you as well. And then also, we had a board member request some additional information on some wellness program utilization. We have provided that information in the agenda packet today, and if you so wish, we can go over that. So the main purpose of this workshop today is we're going to go over the 0% increase that was provided by Cigna, and then also some additional renewal options that we had Garing Group go to Cigna on after we got that 0%, because you'll see there's some numbers that changed with the other two plans when they worked to negotiate that 0%. So really what we're looking for is some guidance. Today is March 3rd. We do have an insurance committee meeting on Monday, March 23rd, and then we'll be back before you on Tuesday, March 24th, where the board will make their final decision on which option they would like for the 26-27 year. As you know, the insurance committee is a recommendation committee, and the board makes the final decision on the employee benefits program and package. And then also, we have a slide presented for you so you can start thinking about how much, if any, employer contribution towards that health savings account that's tied to that high deductible health plan would look like for the 26-27 year. So staff and Garing Group work together to provide you with some preliminary options for you for the next year. Okay, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and slide down to page number 4, and Dustin is going to give you a high-level view of where claims were for January of 26.
All right, well, good afternoon. If you look on the screen in front of you in your packets, you'll see we have claims updated through January 2026. Unfortunately, it was another high month of claims at 106% loss ratio. So that brings the plan year to date at 100% loss ratio and the rolling 12 months at a 96% loss ratio. So unfortunately, since October, we are seeing higher than last year. Claims are up about 22% versus the same period of last year. The next page just breaks out claims by plan. You'll see HMO at 112%. High deductibles running very well at 58%, and the PPO is running at 112%. Next few pages are just historical data. Page 6, most important thing to note here is that we will have one more month of claims next time we're in front of you. We'll be replacing a 90% loss ratio of February 25 as we look at the rolling 12 months. So if claims are better than 90%, that rolling 12 will improve. If not, it will go up. 7 and page 8 are your large claimant information. You'll see on the large claims, thing to note here is historically, and this stays true with your claims now, you have 50% of the large claims that have a cancer diagnosis, which is typical for our groups. You have 8 claimants over $100,000, totaling $1.1 million. Your pooling point is $200,000, meaning any claim above $200,000 gets taken up to reinsurance, and it doesn't hurt your renewal calculation. So the next few pages, we'll go over some renewal and some alternatives for your consideration. Just to reiterate, we went out to bid last year, and Cigna was selected. We negotiated a second-year rate cap at a 10% not to exceed. So based on your claims experience, that not to exceed is kicking in. So it's good that we have that cap at 10%. Page 11, alternative A, or renewal A, is 10% across the board. So this option would increase the HMO high deductible PPO 10% across the board.
And I just wanted to just say real quickly before Dustin presents the other options you're going to see here is that the insurance committee met last Monday on February 23rd. They saw all of the options that you're going to see right now, but they reiterated for the second month in a row by unanimous vote that this is the option they are recommending to the board.
And we'll also highlight where your enrollment sits. You have almost 1,200 employees in the HMO, 92 in the OAP, which is grandfathered, no new enrollment in that plan. And OAP, we'll say that's your PPO. And the high deductible has about 560. So if you look at the high deductible all the way at the bottom in the blue rows, that's what the employee's contributions would be per pay. Under this option A, the high deductible health plans per pay deductions would be $27.08. This is the option of 10% per plan. If we go to the next page, option B, this plan looks at lowering the high deductible to 5%, no plan changes. But inversely, what would happen is, because Cigna needs a 10% overall combined premium for all plans, it would increase the HMO and the PPO rates from a 10% to an 11.5 on the HMO and 11.8 on the PPO. So it lowers the high deductible, slightly increases the PPO and HMO. Option C, this is the option that was requested by the board, and we went back to Cigna to negotiate, and there was a lot of back and forth. Ultimately, they did come to the table. They are willing to hold the high deductible health plan rates at a 0% increase. And you'll see that what that does in effect to the HMO is it increases the rates from 10% to 13 and the PPO from 10% to 13.4. You'll see overall, if you combine the annual premium, it is at a 10% for all of these options that I'm discussing today. Before I move on, we have a few more options. I want to pause because I'm getting some looks. Any questions?
Roberts?
So the loss ratio on the high deductible, I think was, I want to say 58%, right? So if it's 58%, in my head, it shouldn't have any rate increase anyway if you were siloing the plans. So if you're siloing the plans, why would I try to, in your selection number A, give everybody 10%? Why isn't that one pulled out and the other two just at 10% without your number 3, which is doing plan changes? I mean, I just think that the other two should be capped at 10%, and the one with the 58 loss ratio should be a 0 anyway.
Understood. And the way Cigna is looking at this is they look at all plans combined. So under all the premium they receive from the district, that's where the not to exceed 10% is capped at. So if they were to keep the HMO and the PPO at a 10% and the high deductible at a 0, overall that would actually bring the overall combined premium below a 10% increase. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But it doesn't make me very happy because
Understood.
I really think,
Understood.
I mean, because I really think that when you're taking that one high deductible and you're saying, if you're truly siloing the plans, if you're, and maybe this is a lesson learned for us, that when we're accepting something with a second year cap and you're siloing the plans, we should be saying that the cap is per line for each of the 3 silos. So that if you did that, then you would be, I mean, then I would be looking at your option A, but I would be taking your option 3 for the high deductible, because I would have nothing for the high deductible, because I shouldn't if I have a 58% loss ratio. And I would be capped at the other 2, so.
Yeah. Loud and clear. It's something that we can note when we go out to bid next time. It's not a bad suggestion.
And can you please relay to the Cigna people that I'm disappointed and dismayed that I feel that they are punishing the high deductible punishing the other people for the nice performance of the high deductible people. I mean, I think you've got high deductible people that have brought them a 58% loss ratio, and I think they should be left alone. I mean, that shouldn't even been a question, that shouldn't have been a rate increase there, and the other 2 should have been 10%.
Noted.
Thank you.
Plus, getting people into that high deductible plan is advantageous for Cigna. So they should want to have something attractive to have people possibly consider, well, this is going up by 10%. Why don't we switch to the one that's staying the same and save some money? So I just think, I agree with Ms. Roberts strongly that it's kind of ridiculous that we have to pay 13 point something to keep that at 0. My counterback would be 10% for those understood. There's our cap. make the other one 0. Maybe you'll make some money off of that because people will go to that and it'll be more profitable based on what the data is showing us. So I'm also frustrated with Cigna. And I hope that they will listen to this and consider that option so that when the real renewal comes up, we don't have to go switch back to Florida Blue or another carrier, that we see this loyalty and we want to continue to do business with them.
Ms. Pritchett?
Isn't it not to exceed 10? Doesn't say must be 10, correct?
Correct.
It could be anywhere from 0 to 10. So
Correct.
they're telling us, because we made it not to exceed 10, we're taking your 10. That to me is deceptive, because we agreed to it wouldn't, 10 was the top. It didn't say next year you're gonna be 10. It said what it said. So I think it's a little bit deceptive to then say, well, your 58% can be 0, but cumulatively, we must be at the 10. I don't understand. That's what I don't understand. I do understand a cap, but the cap wasn't, it must be 10%. So I think there's an issue there that needs to be resolved in one way or another. Thank you.
You have anything, Ms. Russell?
I mean, I feel like we all were under the impression that they were all going to be siloed at 10% was the cap. Each one individually would not exceed 10%. So if one is at a 58% loss ratio, it makes 0 sense to me that they would suffer and pay more because another group had a higher loss ratio. It just doesn't make sense to me. I understand they're trying to recoup their money and I get business, but it doesn't sit well with me.
So not to pile on to Cigna, but I will, and I think I did plenty of that last meeting. This, again, is disappointing. I'm ready. I wish we could go out to bid now because I feel like this is not what we signed up for. We signed up to silo the plans, and now here we are, and we have one of our plans that's performing very well, and people take on that risk. Our employees are taking on the risk that they're not going to have a catastrophic loss in the high deductible plan, and they're choosing that because it's affordable. And now we're going to spread that amongst all of our plans because they're saving a little, but they're also paying out of pocket more. I feel like Cigna needs to do better. I don't think that this is right. I think we should have a cap at 10%, and the high deductible plan should be rated on its merits as a our most high performing plan. So that's my comments. I don't know what else to say. I don't know that we're ready as a board to say that we're gonna accept anything, or I think they need to do better. Ms. Roberts?
So I feel like it's the small print that's like really getting to us now. And so then I guess my question is, as you go out to bid, maybe we should be bidding the high deductible plan all by itself. Like that should be a standalone plan, and then the other plans should be wherever they fall, so that if we end up with this, well, that's just the way that insurance companies do it. If we're gonna do a cap, we're gonna do a cap across the board, and you're gonna average out to your 10%. I don't even know if it's the weighted average. I mean, I look at you, Gabrielle, because I'm wondering if, when you do that, if that's the weighted average comes out, or whether that, you know what I mean? Whether
it's the weighted.
it is the weighted average. So then I kind of feel like, well, okay, let me just yank my high deductible completely away. Let me let everybody bid the other plans, and let me bid my high deductible over on the other side, and I'm never gonna have this problem with a high deductible then. Because if I bring you a high deductible, if that was the only plan we had, and we had a 58% loss ratio, we would not even be having this discussion. So we would be having two discussions. Let's talk about the high deductible, where we don't have anything, and now let's talk about the plans that have a cap. But it's I feel like it's not even just disappointing. It's more than disappointing. It's kind of like somebody found the loophole and is using the loophole to their benefit and not to our benefit. And it makes you really kind of wonder, because I was all in with the great relationship with Cigna, loved the package, loved the thing, loved the rollout, loved everything else. And now I feel like, you just took my cookies away from me and you're telling me I can't eat anything. Here, eat oatmeal. I just feel like it's, thank you.
I guess I'm just curious too, if we could self-insure our high deductible plan ourselves. I want to, because the loss ratio is so great, it would be less of a risk for us, and then we just bid out the other plans as an option. Just something, I don't know how that works out, but we have to do something differently, because the other two plans, the lowest for an employee only is $830 a month. That's crazy. I mean, I guess it would be minus the 6,500.
Right, the board contributes $541.67.
But still, if you have a family, it's $1,400 a month, right? When you take out your 6,500, which
The cost for
It's
the
only-
employees based on the 6,500 is in the blue.
Okay.
And those are per pay.
per pay. So $1,000 or, yeah, $1,500 a month for a family. I'm looking at the bottom, employee plus family. Over $1,500 per month, because it's per pay.
Pay.
So 2 per month. 2 pays per month, so $1,500. Are there any other questions from the board? Okay. Did you have something, Ms. Bridget?
I like the idea of the self-insured for the high deductible.
I think we're going to have a meeting in the future where we're going to talk about additional options, including the PEO, self-insured, where we are with that, where we are, you know, with our level of risk as a school board, to hopefully try to start tackling some of this, because this is a lot. Ms. Roberts?
So I know that normally you would be having your meeting on the 23rd, and then you're bringing us back something at the next workshop. Even though we're having a meeting right after your meeting on the 23rd, I think our meeting is on the 24th.
Yeah.
I would wonder whether you can express to Cigna and have a discussion with Cigna about our dismay, et cetera, and come to that board meeting on the 24th to at least share with us, so that, and just, I mean, look at it right now, just from what the numbers are right now with the usage that you see. So we don't have the next usage, we don't have any of that other stuff, but just when they hear what we're saying, right, what their response is to that, whether they're just like digging themselves into the sand and just figuring, well, I guess it was a short-term relationship, nice date, but we're not going any further than that, or if they want to try to get engaged and married. I mean, I think that's a fair assumption, to have somebody come back and say something to us. Just, I mean, not even going through all these numbers, but just to kind of, so they understand where we're coming from and what we're saying.
There's a representative from Cigna here, so I can guarantee you that they are hearing you. But we'll bring it back. Yes. So anticipating that this is where the conversation would most likely go when we got Cigna's response since the last workshop. If you could turn to page 14, I did ask Garen Group to go back and see if we did make some plan design changes on the OAPIN, which is the HMO plan, or the OAP plan, with keeping some of the, keeping that 0% high deductible health plan option, what that would look like. So for time purposes, Page 14 to 15, you guys already saw last month. We're not interested in that. So if you could turn to page 16, you'll see alternate renewal number 3, which includes that 0% increase to the high deductible health plan, not making any plan design changes to the high deductible health plan, and what it would look like if we did make some changes to the OAPI and OAP. Justin, can you just kind of go over what
Sure.
we asked?
Yep, so page 16, you'll see that the red benefits are plan changes. So you'll see on the HMO, by increasing the deductible from 2,000 to 3,000, and to clarify where that deductible kicks in is if you go down the line of benefits, anywhere you see a CYD, calendar year deductible, the member would have to satisfy that deductible first. So you'll notice that the deductible only applies on the HMO to the benefits we're showing, inpatient, outpatient hospital. Everything else is a copay, meaning member goes to the primary care, they pay a $40 copay. There's no deductible, right? So just want to make that clear. Although it is an increase in deductible, it only applies here to those hospital services. It also looks at increasing the out-of-pocket max from 5,000 to 7,000. That is how much an employee will pay out of pocket amongst deductible, co-insurance, and copays in a given year. That brings, you'll see, it was a 13%, keeping the high deductible at a 0%. That brings it down to a 10. So it kind of just shows you what would be needed to bring it down to that 10%. I will go to the next page, which just deepens the plan design changes. It increases the deductible a little bit more. And that brings the increase from a 10 down to a 7.9%. So just a few more options to consider. I have a feeling there's not an appetite here, but we just wanted to again show some other options.
Well, and my only comment on this is that the burden, once again, just falls on the employee to cover an extra $1,000 in expenses before their insurance really even kicks in. Well, I guess there are negotiated rates and our set amounts for certain things that are negotiated through the contract, like medicine, doctor's appointments, those types of things at a more discounted rate. But I think people are tapped out right now, and that burden falls on them, and I'm not really interested in that.
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys feel.
Yeah, to add on an extra 1,000 to that deductible and increase the plan 7.7%, I'll never sign off on that. I'll just tell you right now, that's horrible. Someone has to go to the hospital. I understand it doesn't I see the copays, I get that, but say you have to go to the hospital and now they're gonna either 50% increase on the deductible or 100%, and their plan is going up. I have no appetite for that at all.
Yeah, so I just wanted to state that that was kind of the insurance committee's thoughts too, is that they felt like because we have close to 1,200 employees on the OAPI and the HMO plan, that they didn't feel like it was right to make plan design changes for those plans, that when I go to the hospital, the OAPI, and I'm gonna pay more, and I'm also paying more every time I get a paycheck out of my deduction. So that was kind of their reasoning why they wanted to stick with the option A. Okay.
And for the next page, for the board's consideration, we did supply some options for a health savings account. Should the board want to continue offering a funded health savings account for those high deductible health plan enrollees. We give you a few different options, and based on the current enrollment, you'll see that it would cost the board from 0, obviously not offering anything, to around $545,000 if you were to offer $1,000 per year into the HSA. So just a few options to consider. We'll also bring this back at the next board meeting, because I'm sure that will have to be, lumped into a broader conversation.
What did we offer last year?
$750.
Okay, and was there migration to the high deductible plan because of that?
I would say the continued support of the board contribution to the health savings account, combined with the fact that the high deductible health plan did not have any increase at all, that is moving people over. And also, when we see our new hires come on board, it is an attractive plan on having a zero cost deduction for medical plan, and then also the board is contributing the $750. And another thing that the board does that is advantageous to the employee is that they get that $750 at the start of the plan year, or if they join in the middle of the plan year, they get it when their benefits go into effect. So a lot of employers typically contribute to the health savings account, but it's per paycheck. So, you know, I get $25 a paycheck. Okay, well, when I go to the doctor, that's not gonna get me far. So the fact that the board front loads it at the beginning of the plan years is a huge plus. And I know it's appreciated by the employees. So that's all we had for the renewal options. I did present and prepare some slides on the wellness program participation, if anybody's interested in going over that. I could go into more detail, or it's there for your consideration, whatever the board's desire is.
Yes, Madam Chair, if you.
Of course.
Yeah, under the wellness program utilization, doesn't look like it's being utilized that much. Am I reading these graphs wrong? You've got the Peloton, and there's 110 people utilizing it per month out of 2,500?
Well, so what we did was we highlighted the most heavily utilized programs that we partner with our Building Healthy Lifestyles Wellness Program on. So I've highlighted just part of it. When we moved over from Florida Blue to Cigna, we received more wellness dollars. So we get $200,000 in wellness dollars each year, and that is in a reimbursement type. So what we did was we kind of broke down what our most heavily popular programs are. We do a lot of other things throughout the year through the Building Healthy Lifestyles Wellness Program that does eat up some of this money, and we do basically use all of the funds that we get each year. One thing I did want to share with you is that and I've shared this at a couple of the workshops, but we've been in talks with Cigna over the past couple of months about changing the wellness program. We just had a really big meeting with them last week, so I could come back in March and tell you all the details about that. But we're going to be kind of transitioning out of the district-run wellness program under the Building Healthy Lifestyles Wellness Program and going towards Cigna's Wellbeing Solution, which will allow more employees to take control of their health, and they'll be able to put an extra $350 in their pocket. So we're excited about that.
So back to my question, it's 110 out of 2,500. Why is that not being utilized? The Omada thing, 40 out of 1,700?
Those are monthly. Those are monthly numbers. We pay per utilization for that. So that is part of the overall $150,000 when we were with Florida Blue. We also have wellness ambassadors. I mean, there's biometric screenings. There's a lot that the wellness program does each year. I kind of focused on programs that we would like to kind of continue moving forward with that are utilized for the 26-27 year.
Is there any kind of nutritional counseling or education on nutrition anywhere in there?
Yeah, for those that are enrolled in Omada, 100% yes. Peloton has on all of their programs. I've used Peloton for many years. They give you tips on nutrition. We've done challenges over the years, like water challenges, healthy eating challenges. We've done exercise goals, so we've done a lot over the years.
I want to make sure that, we've got a lot of money that we got toward this, that we're utilizing this. And from some of this data, it just doesn't look like it's being utilized as much as it should. I mean, if you look at our losses, and some of those conditions, we're a very sick bunch of people. So I would really love to see this more heavily utilized, and especially in things like exercise, nutrition, where employees can learn about healthier eating habits and things like that they can utilize more prevalently.
Yep. Any other questions or comments, feedback? Okay, all right. Well, the Cigna representative is here. I'm sure they've heard everything you're stating, so we're going to have Garen Group go back to them between now and March 23rd, and then we'll be back here on March 24th, and we will provide the information to the board with any updates on their renewal offers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll give you guys a minute. And next up, we have our school improvement and leadership updates for priority schools. Lauren Gifford and Daniel Moore. Turn your microphone on. There we go.
There we go. Can you hear me okay? Thank you. So good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Maine, Lauren Gifford, Executive Director of School Improvement and Leadership. Today, along with my colleagues, I am presenting a mid-year progress update on 3 of our 6 priority schools, Hobe Sound, Seawind, and Port Salerno Elementary School. This presentation provides a transparent, high-level overview of each school's performance based on prior year's school data, a look at current performance data, targeted supports that have been deployed, and how we are adjusting those supports in response to PM2 results and ongoing formative data. While the data reflects both areas of progress and continued need, the work remains active, responsive, and focused on improving outcomes for students. This has been a continued sense of urgency around this work, and I look forward to walking you through the data, the strategies currently in place, and what we anticipate as we move forward toward the PM3 state assessment window. Following the presentation, there will be an opportunity for the board to ask any clarifying questions. And I would also like to thank and acknowledge our school-based leaders who are sitting behind us, who are in attendance today, and thank them for their continued leadership and commitment to this work. Before we begin today with the first highlighted school, Executive Director Moore will lay the foundation by reviewing the elementary school grade model and the data used for reporting progress and setting future expectations.
Thank you, Executive Director Gifford. Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for having us here today for our mid-year update. So we are presenting 3 schools tonight. For each school, we'll give you an overview of their school grade journey over the last few years, how they got where they are now as these schools. And then we'll lead into an overview of their school grade components. So as you know, there are 8 components for a total of 800 points in the elementary school grade model. And so we'll talk through each of those components, which ones we're focusing on specifically this year to drive that improvement. We will provide a high-level overview of what we put in place for semester one, both school site and district site, to highlight what we did moving into the school year to remediate those areas we identified over the summer. And then we will shift to semester two action items and strategies responsive to data that we collected through PM2, IXL, unit assessments, to get the best possible outcomes for our students. And then we will finish with our expectation of where each school will land. It is not a school grade projection. We are in the first week of March. It would be like trying to predict the score of a football game in the third quarter, and so there's a lot of time left on the clock. But given the adjustments we made mid-year, what our trend analysis from December, January through February is looking like, if those trends continue, we do feel confident that we can provide an expectation of about where they would land. And so we will present that to you tonight. And then if you have questions, we're happy to answer them. We have brought some supplemental data to help inform some of those expectations if you have questions. With that being said, it is my honor and privilege to introduce Dr. Paige McMahon, our Coordinator of Curriculum and Instruction, to present our first school.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Superintendent Main. My name is Paige McMahon, and I am proud to present our first priority school tonight, Hope Sound Elementary. So as you can see in this graphic, in the 23-24 school year, Hope Sound was a B, and more recently, at the end of last year, they ended up at a score of 414, which lands them in the C range. However, they are not too far away from the B, which is why we are very excited to present our projections, or not projections, rather expectations for this school year, and share the work that the school has been doing to meet those expectations or possibly even exceed them. This is a snapshot of the school grade components that landed them at their current score of a 414. You can see in red, they took dips in the areas of ELA achievement, ELA learning gains, ELA bottom quartile learning gains, math achievement, math learning gains, and science achievement. The three areas highlighted in blue are identified as their focus areas because they had the greatest drops. They did experience two gains actually from the prior school year in ELA third grade achievement in particular, as well as learning gains of the bottom quartile in math. So they currently sit at 414, which is only 14 points away from a B. Based on those three focus areas with the highest drops, we identified actions to implement from the beginning of the school year in semester one, targeting the bottom quartile learning gains for ELA, the learning gains for math, as well as science achievement overall. Some of the highlights include professional learning sessions from our state regional literacy director, Mandy Rowland. She's been working specifically with our teachers of grades 3 through 5 on the science of reading and the use of scaffolds in instruction. We've done a lot of professional learning around IXL and using the various reporting analytics available to us to monitor progress, especially of our bottom quartile students. We do want to make sure those learning gains are attainable and students are on track to meet those. We did implement building thinking classrooms training for the staff on campus. That's been a game changer specifically in math, so we hope that will increase those math learning gains. And this year we also added an elementary science coach to our curriculum and instruction team who's been helping all of the schools actually, and Hope Sound's fifth grade team in particular on delivering benchmark aligned instruction in science. In semester two, after we receive PM2 data, we triangulate that with our common assessment data and our monthly IXL snapshot data to further adjust and add to our supports, as we do want to help maintain and exceed our expectations in those three focus areas. Some of the new supports we have implemented within semester two include student goal setting and student data tracking. Students are becoming much more aware of where they are and where they need to be. Help them get that motivation and that drive to achieve their goals. We are increasing our expectations of our monthly snapshots in IXL. That way, the more students who complete those monthly snapshots, the more accurate of a picture we have each month as we get closer and closer to PM3. And that way we can continue to adjust our instruction and provide small group support to the students who are not meeting those gains that we expect to see each month. And then in science, Hope Sound implemented a new structure with IXL Science in particular to target that focus area for them. So in addition to their science teachers already using IXL Science to supplement their instruction, they have now added that into their rotation during computer lab time. So students get a little extra boost of science instruction. Our current expectations, again, this is the first week of March. Based on this point in time, we do expect that Hope Sound will land in the B range. Total points expected should be somewhere around a 446. Based on that current PM2 data we have, in particular, their ELA achievement in 3rd grade has been very strong. They have already achieved 59%. So we have them at a 60% on there, but they could be well above that. And if they are on track as far as all of the other things, as I said, we do expect them to land in the B range.
All right, I have the pleasure of highlighting Seawind Elementary School, and I'm proudly wearing their Seawind blue tonight. Although Seawind has earned a C school grade over the last 4 years, Seawind is a little bit unique to the 2 schools that you'll hear about this afternoon in terms of their recent school grade history. Seawind's 24-25 data did put them into the C school range, earning 404 of the 800 points total. However, unlike the other 2 schools, they did increase their points from the prior year by 11 points. You'll see that indicated with the arrow moving to the right. Despite this increase, there is still a 24-point gap between the low end of the B school range. Next, as you look across the 24-25 school grade snapshot, you can very easily see the increases that Seawind Elementary School made last school year, as indicated with green font. So out of the 8 total reporting categories, they had 5 increases, with 3 of those increases in the ELA domain, 2 in math domain with achievement and learning gains, and then you'll see highlighted in blue the 3 areas that really needed the targeted focus. First one being their overall ELA achievement, which stayed at 52% with no upward movement. Bottom quartile learning gains for math had a decline of 9%, as well as science overall achievement declining for 9%. As we move into school improvement supports for semester 1, it's important to note, of course, as Dr. McMahon had shared, that this is not a comprehensive list of all of the supports and things that have been taking place on this campus since day 1, but these are some high-level overviews and some critical highlights that I'll focus on for this evening. It's also important too, just to communicate that Seawind's subgroups with ELL and ESE also had targeted focus within these 3 domains as well. So when we look at ELA achievement, one of the things that Principal Michaels took charge of was ensuring that her staff and her community understood the school grade model and how that school grade is calculated, and that's been ongoing learning that's been taking place on her campus, which is extremely important for all stakeholders to see any missed opportunities and also areas to accelerate moving forward. There's also been critical work around their professional learning communities and really recentering back to the 4 essential questions, the 4 whys of the PLCs. They have had on-site coaching support from the district level, helping facilitate the PLCs as well as assisting with planning. Really keeping it tight on the standards as well as engagement structures and scaffolds for subgroups. Seawind also experienced a few vacancies in the fall in some of their critical tested grade areas, 3rd grade and 5th grade specifically. Curriculum and instruction and professional learning were able to deploy coaches to ensure that these students had certified teachers temporarily until those vacancies could be filled. Moving into math bottom quartile learning gains, similar to what Dr. McMahon had shared, IXL professional learning was provided for all of the staff, and also a lot of hands-on training to go through the many different reports that are available to school sites and teachers, specifically highlighting ways to pinpoint bottom quartile students, as well as pairing that with instructional routines and activities that can be assigned for those particular students. In addition, this really led into on-site coaching support from different departments, visits from the ELL department, ESE department, really going through targeting specific students and looking at instructional strategies to help plan and implement small group instruction. And then for science, again, on-site coaching support, really leveraging lesson planning and looking at the curricular resources that are available, modeling hands-on demonstrations for science, particularly for the related arts teacher and grade 5 team to help build background knowledge for students, also bring the engagement to life and support vocabulary concepts and development for students. Moving into supports for semester 2, obviously the PM data was very informative and provides really evidence of things that were impactful, as well as maybe areas where we needed to pivot. Just a few highlights I'd like to share is that CWIN's 3rd grade team overall and cohort is trending very strong, very well, with the largest impact being seen there in their data. The percentage of students scoring level 3 or above for 3rd grade ELA has increased 18%, and math in 3rd grade up 19%. 4th grade has also shown an increase in both areas as well, roughly about half the percentage as 3rd grade has performed. And then 5th grade has made some strides with some small percentage increases up to 6% for students scoring level 3 and above. However, their ELA performance did take a decline by 3%, and their science PMT went down 2%. So with that being said, just some critical moves and pivots for semester 2 regarding ELA. Principal Michaels and her team have implemented a lesson study model, which is research-based, where grade level teams will look at some problematic standards or critical standards that are assessed, and the teams plan around those standards, looking very closely at engagement structures and impact. They then implement that plan, teachers observe, they debrief, and then provide kind of a round 2 of the lesson planning to take back and then implement for students across the rest of the grade. So their grade 4 and 5 teachers have been utilizing this lesson study model. It has been quite impactful. Also, a big shout out to our HR department for assisting and really elevating to fill all of the critical vacancies that were on campus semester 1. And I'm proud and excited to share that beginning of semester 2, we had all the 3rd, the 5th, and also an interventionist position staff that is currently supporting 5th grade ELA. Math, again, similar to what Hope Sound is doing, a lot of work with the Leader in Me, where students are tracking and setting goals based on their data through IXL and their PMs, and also student-led conferences, so really having awareness of their journey and their learning, where they started, where they need to get to, and how they're going to get there. And then finally, just some key areas in science. Implementation of science IXL in the computer lab for that extra support and review. Their science lab teacher has been pushing in providing small group instruction that is flexible based on changing needs of students with formative data, and that's happening daily, pushing into intervention blocks into 5th grade. So those are a few of the high-level overview for semester 2. And then looking at CWIN school grade expectations, building off of the performance from last year where they were making some small increments of change in the right direction, and also looking at progression of data at this point in time this year. We are looking to see, and it will be important to have every single domain for CWIN show improvement to get to what we're anticipating or expecting cautiously around a 428, that low end range of a B. All right, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Gifford. So Port Salerno is a slightly different story from Seawind. In our last school, we saw a school on the rise. And so between 23-24 and 24-25, we saw a steady increase. As you know, Port Salerno had very strong performance in 23-24, scoring a 444, landing them well into the B category, B range. Last year, they saw significant dips, pushing them down into the C range. And so of the 3 schools we're looking at tonight, Port Salerno does have the furthest way to go to get to the 428 required for a B. So here is how it panned out for 24-25. We saw significant dips in science at 19%, down from the previous year. Learning gains at the bottom quartile for math, down 28% from the previous year. And then in ELA, learning gains dropped 9% for the bottom quartile students. And so with such a sharp drop, there's a lot of ground to cover. They do need 35 points to get to the B range. Next slide. And so looking at what we put in place to make sure that we got there this year, we did do specific targeted coaching cycles focused on Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction specific to ELL and ESE subgroups. Because 2 of their focus areas are bottom quartile, a large portion of that bottom quartile is ELL and ESE students, and so focusing on scaffolds, appropriate instruction, making sure that teachers were trained and that school leadership and support staff knew how to best support those kids has been a focus all year, but starting in semester 1. We have also introduced after-school tutoring at all of our priority schools, but it is a system at Port Salerno specifically targeting those bottom quartile students, which are the focus across both ELA and math. Port Salerno has also implemented some individual learning plans for all students in the bottom quartile as a way to make sure they're getting what they need, and that teachers are monitoring that data. In addition to our district coaches and site-based support staff at Port Salerno, they are also working closely with their state regional literacy director, focusing on that explicit instruction, Tier 3 intervention, and providing modeling and resource support throughout semester 1. In math, we have some of the same focus being bottom quartile, specifically strategies for ESE and ELL students to make sure that they are making their gains across that bottom quartile. With the addition of a accelerated math course in grade 3, we are seeing stronger results from students, both in bottom quartile and in overall achievement. Port Salerno did hire an additional math interventionist to target that bottom quartile, responsive to the data we received over the summer. To increase engagement for our students, we have been deploying Building Thinking Classrooms district-wide with additional support at Port Salerno to implement that inquiry and exploration model for learning. There's been a strong focus on MTSS throughout semester 1 across the campus for Tier 2 and Tier 3 students. In previous years at Port Salerno, explicit instruction has been a focus, which is what landed them at that 444B in 23-24. And in 24-25, trying to build into a focus on small group instruction. Some of those pieces for Tier 2 and Tier 3 were just missed. And so as we provide targeted learning, professional learning for intervention, scaffolds, remediation, we are kind of backtracking to make sure that kids get what they need the first time and then providing more targeted intervention to get them there as the year progresses. In science, knowing that that was an area that had a large drop, the district provided additional curricular resources and training from a dedicated elementary instructional coach for science, specifically targeting students that we call bubble students, students that based on a reading score have the potential to achieve proficiency on the science assessment and be on grade level at the end of the year, so making sure that the right kids are getting the right supports from the right people. And then extended classroom learning through a science lab alignment to provide extra science instruction and time on task for those kids. So with those things in place, we moved into semester 2 and reviewed some of our data to make some adjustments to our instructional plan, our action plan. So moving into semester 2, reviewing our IXL data, unit data, and PM2 results, we deployed instructional coaches to assist with targeted facilitated planning sessions for the grade 4 and 5 teachers. As we shift from quarter 3 to quarter 4, our instructional coaches have been deployed to provide direct student support. So moving from coaching teachers to doing direct intervention with students to make sure that every student is following that success plan and getting the instruction they need. Continuing our facilitated lesson study focused on that explicit instruction, engagement, and scaffolding is a continuation from semester one, but we have seen good results from that work, and so we're continuing to layer that in. And then additional small group instruction 3 times a week facilitated by on-site staff members, supported by our SDO coaches, specifically for the bottom quartile and the ELA. In math, similarly, we are increasing our focus and presence at Port Salerno to provide additional support for bottom quartile students and teachers that provide their instruction. We are currently working to support student goal setting through our IXL platform, which helps students really navigate through their learning and know where they're at and where they need to be. With science, we still are deploying our science coach to provide additional support. The science lab teacher has shifted to daily science remediation, and so students are getting extra attention as we move into quarter 4 and getting ready for the Florida science assessment. And then spiral review has been sent out to our priority schools developed by our SDO team, implemented 5 days a week to ensure that in that science assessment, which captures both 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade standards, that the things that they learned in years previous to this year are at the forefront and ready to be demonstrated on our end-of-year assessment. So given that Port Salerno has the longest way to go of the other schools we looked at tonight, 35 points, we are seeing some positive trends looking at our student achievement data PM2 and most recently our January and February IXL data. We're seeing trends and we do expect growth in most categories. The 3rd grade ELA cohort for achievement, they're a little lower than they were the previous year, and so we are predicting or expecting a slight drop there even with intervention. We think that that's probably about where they'll land with 3rd grade achievement, but in every other school grade component we are expecting growth. Based on the trajectory, interventions deployed, supports provided, we are expecting Port Salerno to come in very close to the B at a 427. Again, this is a very early expectation. I wouldn't call it a projection or a prediction. We could gain a few, we could lose a few, but with the data we have available, best estimate right now is at a 427, right on the borderline of a B and a C.
That concludes our presentation, and we certainly appreciate the opportunity to share this work with you. Thank you. And at this time, we're happy to open up the floor to questions, and we're happy to clarify anything.
Does anyone? No? Ms. Pritchett, do you have any questions? Okay. Ms. Roberts?
Sure, so I just wanted to be sure I captured this correctly. So let me do each school independently. So Hope Sound Elementary, the prior year was 445, and they dropped 31 points to get to 414, which is what pushed them into the C. They needed a 428 to come back, and they look like they're gaining 32 points. The expectation is 32 points, which would put them at 446, which would make them a solid B, correct? And I want to make a note that they have learning aids for the low 25% in ELA, just like pack that one away. And Seawind is a continuous growth school. Let's look at it that way. You had 393, you went up 11 points, you got to a 404. Now we're going up 24 points. They're going to be at the expectation is 428, which puts them right on the cusp, right? Mm-hmm. And their learning gain focus area is for math, the low 25 for math, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Then Port Salerno was 444. Went down 51 points, and the biggest hits were the 25% for ELA and the 25% for math, which was a huge, down 28%, right? So that landed you at 393. We're expecting 34 points, which is the largest number of points for any of the 3 of these, correct? And even at the 427, that's right on the cusp too, knowing that the 428 is the magic number. So, and I appreciate that even though you gave me the percentages, the 2 that don't have points that correspond with them are the achievement and the 3rd grade achievement for ELA. I mean, those are the ones that the percentages don't reflect the points, so that makes it a little bit more complicated. And they have low 25 issues in both ELA and in math, right? Which, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking that one of the best ways to address those low 25s is with the small groups and the pullouts. Is that correct? Okay. So then my question is, and I appreciate all the work of the school-based administrators, and I appreciate you all looking at these numbers, drilling down, knowing your students, and knowing what you have to do. I really think that makes a huge difference, and that's kind of showing to show what those numbers are. I mean, I look at the IXL charts that are upstairs in the district office, and I can really tell what the work that's being done there. That all being said, has anybody looked at which of these, take the low 25s, are in extended day, and if there's the potential to do pullouts from extended day to add additional support to those students?
Sure. I do believe that through some of the RAISE tutoring programming that's happening in conjunction with the Education Foundation, that those students have been priority targeted because they're already there on campus.
Yeah, so I think I don't want to be too much in your weeds and up in your all's business, but I would kind of be interested in numbers if you know that, 95% of your low 25 is in an extended day. How many of those are actually getting some pullout or some small group in that setting, knowing that you're getting everything else at the same time? But I think that would be kind of interesting to note.
Well, and comparing their growth compared to students that are not getting that
Yeah.
After school. I think we have that data.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. But thank you very much for an understandable presentation.
Thank you.
Any other, Ms. Pritchett?
Not a question, but I'm amazed at how you pulled out everything into this, because this is very difficult stuff to deal with on a regular basis, and it's so clear and so easy to understand. I just really appreciate how you did it and how all of the principals are helping and it's working. So praise to all of you as well for the work that you're doing to get your kids what they need. So thank you to all of you.
Thank you.
And I would just echo what Ms. Pritchett said. And, it's amazing to look at the data that you presented to us. And I want the public to know that the school grades are very deceiving, because there is so much you can see in the data, the gains that students are making, that the grade doesn't necessarily reflect the hard work that's happening in school by teachers and students. So, but this, you really see it on paper. And knowing that Port Salerno has the most work to do, they're also the highest in the low 25% in learning gains. So that's a huge undertaking and success, as far as I'm concerned. So thank you all very, very much.
Thank you. We'll look forward to seeing you with the remaining 3 schools very soon.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll transition now to Dr. Miller and Tyson Waters to talk about a sale of property process. And that was brought back at the request of the board. We had several properties that we are looking at, that we are doing appraisals, and we're in that process. And then this is just educational for the board to understand what that process looks like. All right, Dr.
Thank you,
Miller.
Madam Chair. Tracy Miller, Deputy Superintendent. Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Main, we're happy to have a familiar face at the table this evening to share with you some information as requested by the board about appraisals and what sales of property might look like, and to be able to answer any questions that you might have around that. So I have Tyson Waters here for you this evening. Thank you for being here.
So good evening, Madam Chair, board member, superintendent. Happy to answer any questions that you have. I think I'll start with kind of the 3 categories that I've been looking at as it relates to disposing or acquiring of real property. So the first one would be the acquisition of real property and what those statutory requirements are. First and foremost, everything must be in writing. So your appraisal, your offers, your counter offers, all must be in writing. And those are exempt from Chapter 119 and the public records requirements for a defined period of time. So during the negotiations for the potential acquisition, those written communications, those appraisals are exempt from the public records. And as part of an acquisition, if the value of the land is between $100,000 and $500,000, one appraisal is required. If it is over $500,000, then two appraisals will be required as part of your evaluation and offer. The second element would be leasing of school property, and that's found in section 1013.15 subpart 1. And the school board has the power to lease a property to any person or entity for such term, for such rent, and upon such terms and conditions as the school board determines in its best interest. And it may provide for the optional or binding purchase of the land. What's different about the leases compared to the outright disposal of land is a determination of the property being unnecessary for educational purposes is not a prerequisite for leasing. And then again, it must be approved at a board meeting. The lease must be approved at a board meeting, and that final lease must be available for the public to inspect. So the last element would be the disposal of real property, so the sale or conveyance of real property, and that's found in section 1013.28. And this is subject to the rules of the State Board of Education, but over time it appears that the Board of Education has really pulled back on some of their requirements, so now it almost mirrors what the state statute is. And that is a school district may dispose of land or real property by resolution of the board, and this is the two kind of key components, based on a determination that the property is unnecessary for educational purposes, and it is recommended as part of your educational plant survey. And then it can be disposed only in the best interest of the public, and then appraisals may be obtained prior to or simultaneously with the receipt of those bids or offers to purchase. So those are the very generic requirements for state statutes that set forth both the acquisition and then the disposal of real property. That's kind of a quick overview, and certainly happy to try and answer whatever questions you may have now or come back and answer them in the future.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board? Roberts.
I just had one clarification, Tyson. So you said for disposal, it needs to be unnecessary for educational purposes. It needs to be in the best interest of the public. And appraisals may be obtained, but are not required to be obtained for disposal?
Yes, ma'am. The state statute says that they may be obtained prior to or simultaneously with the receipt of the bids. The Board of Education used to have rules a number of years ago that kind of broke disposal into three categories. One is the sale to governmental entities that you could just do. Another one was a trade where you could exchange real property. And then the third one would be where you outright convey it to a third party, setting forth those similar appraisal requirements that we saw in the acquisition, where one was required for property between 100 and 500, and then two were required for 500,000. But those rules have been eliminated based on the most recent, and this most recent being 2014, standard requirements for educational facilities.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I'm sure if we get to that point that we will have questions
Absolutely.
as it's presented to us by the superintendent. So thank you very
Absolutely.
much. We appreciate it. All right, next up we have again, Dr. Miller and Mark Seacrest to talk about the K-8 concept again. Give more information on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're going to ask Dan Moore if he would like to join us, and also Angie Gilbride. We may have questions for pre-K. We are definitely planning on this potential pre-K-8 conversion in Indiantown to include pre-kindergarten. So we have everyone here that as questions arise, we really want the workshop to be an opportunity for you to ask questions as you have them, and for us to not only be able to share information that we have prepared for you, but also to respond to questions that you might have. So Tracy Miller, Deputy Superintendent.
Tyson Waters from the law firm of Fox McCluskey.
Mark Seacrest, Director of Facilities.
Angie Gilbride, Principal Pre-K.
Dan Moore, Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
Okay, we do like to start our facilities workshops with this visual. You've seen it many times, but for the public, I think it's important to see where our school properties are located, and you can see Mr. Seacrest has identified them as elementary, middle, high school. We have some alternative sites, and also our other district properties, such as the building that we're in now and purchasing, maintenance, transportation. So this evening's presentation really focuses on a proposed pre-K to 8 conversion that we spoke about a few weeks ago in Indiantown on the current location, the current property of Indiantown Middle School. So the plan, in simple terms, is to reallocate the already planned and budgeted Warfield new construction project, and instead of continuing with that project that was in the 5-year capital plan, to instead turn that into a pre-K to 8 school at the current Indiantown Middle School campus. What's nice about this in terms of being able to create a combination school like this that is unique is that we currently have capacity at both of our schools, Warfield and Indiantown. So through the entire building process, we would be able to leave those schools in their current state throughout the process. So we wouldn't be shuffling kids around, there wouldn't be confusion for families, we would be able to move in once the new construction is complete. So that is unique, and we're very fortunate to be in a position to be able to look at something like that. And we did hear Mrs. Roberts at the last workshop. She had asked for the enrollment to include pre-K, so that's why you see numbers at Warfield being higher than we presented before. Those are including their current enrollment numbers for pre-kindergarten, and then projected enrollment, that would be what we're expecting to walk in the door in August. And then, of course, school capacity, which is what the Department of Education tells us is the available seat capacity at each of our locations.
So good afternoon, Mark Seacrest, Director of Facilities and Planning. I'm excited to show you this concept plan. What this leads to, if the board desires, is the actual master planning, which would be approved at the next board meeting. But this gives you a diagram of what the possibilities may be at Indiantown Middle School. You see the upper right, we actually own that land. I highlighted it in green because we've got to decide, well, you have to decide as the board and the superintendent how you want to move forward with this, but it could be a family learning center. We actually have an adult learning building there highlighted in the red rectangle. And then the blue rectangle up above is, I guess it's like a Head Start federal program, but we actually lease that. So we got to have that discussion of how you want to move forward with that building. And then essentially, where you see the arrow, there's a field located there. That may be part of the sports complex renovation where we could actually do a t-ball field or something in that area. Because currently now it's an open field where we used to grow landscaping across the district for use. So then as we move south or down on the page, this blue area is our current sports complex. We are proposing a sports complex renovation, which could include a concession stand, possible restrooms similar to what we have at Hidden Oaks. But we do currently have a full track there with a full soccer field and football field. And we do have 2 courts there located at the bottom near the chiller plant. As part of this this pre-K 8 moves forward, we're going to have to do an addition to the chiller plant. So there's going to be some kind of a building addition to take on that additional load to the campus. And then as we move to the left of the page, you'll see we have the existing building 4 and 5. And what I'm proposing, which I don't graphically show, is we're probably going to propose outside dining between the 2 buildings. So as we go to elementary and middle school, we would have an area outside the buildings for outside dining. And then as we move to the left, you have the existing gym. That gym was actually proposed to be renovated. It would now be part of the major project and be part of this conversion, we would go in and start renovating that gym, similar to what we did at Stewart Middle, and we're actually doing this at Murray Middle, which will happen here in the next 18 months or so. And then we moved to the building that nobody has yet, which is the pre-K to 5 building. This is just a conceptual diagram of where we could place it. The location actually helps protect the area to the, I guess, south, or actually it's east, if you want to be geographically correct. Right there where Building 2 is. If Building 2 is removed, then that whole area would actually become the play field and the play court and the 3 playgrounds for the pre-K to 5 new building. Again, that building's probably going to be similar in size to Palm City Elementary or Jensen Beach Elementary, minus the cafeteria and the admin area, because we already have an admin building 1 for IMS. So those functions wouldn't be part of the building, but it'd be a similar building, probably 2-story in nature. And we will integrate pre-K similar to like what we have at Jensen Beach Elementary now. And then I'm proposing to the, I guess that's called Farm Road, Farm Avenue?
Farm Road. Farm Road, yeah.
That would actually become extended car lane parking and staff parking. And I think that's a nice buffer between the building and the street. So it gives an added protection to the kids that are in those elementary buildings. And then, you know, as we move forward in the discussion, I think we got to discuss what to do with Building 2. We're at that teetering point where it's almost outlived its age, and the more money we put into this building now will extend its life with DOE. So I think as part of the master planning plan that we bring forward, we would have the architect look at what a custody looks like and if it's feasible for that building. We are actually holding $1.7 million of HVAC renovation to that building, depending on what the board decides they want to do with that renovation. But I would be cautious because it did come up at Jensen Beach Elementary, even though the project was probably 7 or 8 years ago. But when we re-roofed that complex and made those exterior hallways, interior hallways, DOE looked at that conversion pretty heavily in the dollar amount, and it was teetering on whether they were going to give us a custody on those buildings or not. So we do have to be cautious. I think it's going to be wise to go through the master planning concept phase to see what those buildings, what that building can look like in a custody process and go through that diagram. But that's the highlighted picture. I can take questions now on that diagram. But here again, it's exciting because it's just a conceptual plan. It gives you kind of a graphic idea of what we can move forward with and how to master plan it.
Roberts?
So knowing that the new build, the green L, the new building pre-K to 5, and knowing that we have some issues in Jensen Beach with the younger pre-K to 2, which have to be downstairs.
Correct.
I'm looking at that thinking that would be a 2-story building, but is there a way to make sure that we can have enough downstairs? So I'm thinking maybe it needs to be something different than just a traditional 2-story.
Right.
Maybe we need to have more downstairs.
Right.
So that we would be able to use it. We don't get into the box that we end up in.
Correct.
Does that?
So conceptually, that's why I've made it an L. So there's a possibility that maybe that left side L is only a 1-story building, but
Yeah.
contains all the pre-K through 2 grades. So
Right.
we don't have the issue upstairs like we do when we get over capacity.
Yeah. And if you did remove the building 2, okay, so let me back up again. So the new building pre-K to 5, if you take out the admin and you take out the media piece of it, and knowing that the other schools cost 32, you'll save some. I mean, I know costs have gone up, but you'll save some because you're not having to add that back in?
In theory, I'm hoping.
Okay. And then is it possible, if you take out the building 2, you put a playground there, you structure it in such a way so that if we have to, I know it's a sore subject, that why would you want to talk about adding portables at the same time that you're building a new school, but if we do end up in a situation where we need to put portables in, that we have an area that we could put the portables in.
Correct.
So that we're not behind the 8 ball and we can't do something. So I mean, I think the worst nightmare would be that here we have a wide influx of pre-K kids that want to come, even though we planned ahead with the downstairs piece, we're now kind of boxed in, and even though we put everybody else 3 to 5 upstairs, we don't have enough space downstairs. I think if we were thinking ahead and thinking, well, okay, they could go over here, you know, and that's how we would be able to do it, I think that that has some merit to it.
Yeah, I think conceptually, we would look at, when we master plan it, where that would be, and more than likely, it's gonna be where Building 2 is located, somewhere in that area.
Right.
So that you can protect that interior courtyard for playing and playgrounds.
Right.
But
Okay.
it would be in that general area.
Thank you.
Mark, who owns that property that's next to the proposed, the blue?
So the green area, we actually own.
Yeah, we own that, and then
Yeah.
what about to the, I
So
guess that's the north?
That's the YMCA.
Well, no, the YMCA is in front of it, and, I mean, that's closer to Farm Road, but I'm
Yes.
talking about that back by the proposed blue area where the sports complex is.
I can look into that. I didn't actually look at that. Yeah, I don't know exactly who owns that. Because there's just that one building. It's some kind of a storage warehouse building. But I can look into that and let you know.
I would just be curious. Go ahead, Brian.
Mark, can you tell me more about the proposed sports complex renovation? Is that outdoor sports and any that you're considering, just so the public might have a little better idea of what might be going there?
So conceptually, right now, we would try to do probably some kind of t-ball, Little League baseball, and then it would be, because we have a full-size field, you could do flag football, soccer, you could do lacrosse too if you wanted to, but any of those types of sports, because you have a full-size football field, and then you have the track, so then you can have any kind of track component you want. It would be very similar to Jensen Beach Elementary that we have now, because the county used to do football, and they used to do soccer, and they've used the track too, so it would, and then it would be, because you have that full-size field, you can have basically full events.
Thank you.
Well, and so Dr. Miller, we have been, and Mark, we've been really looking at specifically in Indiantown, taking the inventory of what's already there in the community, but field-wise, and also then looking at where are the gaps and hoping that we, as a school district, as we make this renovation, can fill some of those gaps for the community, while also creating a really nice athletic facility for Indiantown Middle School as well. And, you know, because Indiantown High School is also building a new sports facility. We just don't know what that is yet, so hoping that everybody comes together, plans well, so we fill the gaps that the community needs the most for the plans for their sports program in the future.
Well, I think in theory, you could do, like you said, you could do an interlocal like we do with Jensen Beach Elementary, and basically the village would use it when they need to.
Yeah, that's the plan. Amy?
Will there be a part in this timeline where the community can kind of weigh in, and, because they are anxious about this to begin with, and I think we really need to hear from them as well. And I'm sure that we all want them to feel really comfortable before
Correct.
we forge ahead.
So I would take Mr. Main's lead, and we will.
Thank you.
We will cooperate with everybody and try to figure that out.
Yes, yes, and yes. We absolutely do. We did not want to get too far out ahead. We wanted to be able to allow the board to take a look at the conceptual drawings. It is very important to me, as I know it is the board and our team, that we have something they can actually visualize and see. So once we're able to get a hold of that, we can move it forward and start to begin to set up some town hall meetings where we give the community the opportunity to give us feedback into what is being proposed, tweaks that they would like to see if we've left anything out, get them really excited about what the board intends to provide for the Indiantown community. I am meeting with a couple of representatives from Indiantown next week, and will continue to do so as they request those meetings, but this is the first step, and once you all give your blessing, then Renee will get involved and we'll begin to get those drawings in place and set those town hall meetings up, and include board members as well if you'd like to be there.
I think it's going to be really important to like the town hall piece of it, but also to have that conceptual plan so that the community can see. And while I think that the buildings and the sports complex are nice, I think the most important thing is to talk about the educational opportunities for students in Indiantown and how that will be enhanced. Because in my mind, that's what sells me on the K-8 model. So I think it's going to be really pre-K-8. It's really important to, you know, really let the community know what the educational benefits are and how students thrive in that setting. More so than, I mean, the buildings are nice, and I think it's going to be, what is being proposed is going to be a focal point for Indiantown and for the community. And I had shared with Dr. Miller and many others that when I was at middle school and at Indiantown Middle, like Indiantown Middle School was on Saturdays, it was packed with families and kids and football games and soccer games that were going on in the community. It was really the hub for the community to come together on Saturday nights for Pop Warner football, and the whole community came. And I think that's what kind of a missing link that is in Indiantown right now. And the sports programs are currently being developed, which is really exciting. And I'm excited for the school district to be a part of that too, but let's focus on education. I think it's really important.
We agree, Mrs. Powers, and that's why you'll always see the instructional team with us when we present. We feel like it's really important for those two connections to always be made.
Yes. And
Mr. Waters did some quick research for you. This piece of property here is a 6.6 acre parcel that is owned by W&W Prefabricators Incorporated.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the owner of that piece, and it is just under 7 acres.
Thank you.
So before we leave this slide, I also wanted to mention, because of this location of the sports complex, we can actually use the green area. There's a major parking area right next to that red outline building that can actually be used for parking for that sports complex instead of having to park all the way near Farm Road. Right, and walk through the campus. So there is opportunities there to create access where they have direct access to parking. So we brought this slide to you before. It's kind of our, I want to call it an estimate. It's a guesstimate until we actually fine tune the master plan. It's a little difficult to figure out where these numbers are going to go. But currently what this slide shows is we're funding the instructional side of this. So it's the K-8, the pre-K-8 buildings and whatever it takes to secure that building and build it. Where we have opportunity now with the village and public people, donations, whatever, would be with the sports complex. And we actually have opportunity in adult education if we can find beneficiaries for that to give us funds or whatever. But what this slide shows is kind of how we would build the actual building and the HVAC and all that for the pre-K-8 building that I showed on the previous slide. It does give you the breakdown. If we try to keep building 2, like I said, it's still a lot of money to renovate that building. But in a sense, we're trying to propose a new 38 classroom building for this pre-K to 8. And, you know, we're estimating now $34.5 million. We're just gonna have to fine tune that as we get master plan and be able to figure out what the actual square footage of this and kind of work those numbers out. I will tell you inflation hasn't decreased, so every 6 months it seems to go up. Right now, knock on wood, Murray Middle's staying in budget, so, but it has gone up compared to our other 4 projects. So I want to keep that in the back of your mind. And we do have that $1.7 million that we wouldn't have to spend on building 2 renovation if we decide to custody it. So the next steps, and they're exciting, because once the board gives us directions and decides, it would be that master plan generation. Currently, right now, that item is on the March school board meeting for your approval. So once that would be approved and you guys want to move that direction, we would start that process with Renee. Now, this master plan doesn't just involve IMS, it actually involves Jensen Beach High School, looking at that land and what's buildable on that land. And then there's a major document on there for master planning, which we have to do as a district. And it's conversations with me and the board and how we develop. So it's gonna show all the things we've discussed in the past 6 months, even though we took no action on them, but we did do planning with it. As a board, you can decide to do no activity on something, or you can decide to do all of it. But that document will contain everything we've discussed, and it'll be something that'll come back to you for approval. But then we go through the custody process, and then we go through the RFQ process, and then get school board approval for the A&E, and then we have the RFQ process for the CM&R, and then get school board approval, and then we have the A&E design, which takes almost 6 to 9 months. And then we have the CM at risk through the GMP in the construction phase, and that's like a 24 to 36 month process. And I'm just basing that on what we've experienced over the last 5 years. And those have been pretty tight schedules.
Any questions? Oh, Ms. Roberts, yeah.
So I'm a little concerned about getting too far ahead of ourselves. I can understand that you're having this, you're bringing us something in March, but I really kind of feel like whether it means that we do a board meeting in Indiantown, whether we do something, but I mean, I don't want the residents of Indiantown to feel like all these decisions were made, they were decided, and now here's the grand reveal where we're going to show you what it is we're doing. So I mean, I know that we've, even though it's an imposition for the technology people to have a board meeting that's somewhere else, I mean, I think that my personal feeling is it warrants that so that it's a more formal.
So I really think my first thing is that I really feel like the superintendent and the staff should go out and educate the community on actually what this is and what it means before we have a board meeting, because the only difference between that is that we could vote on something at a board meeting. I think that there is a lot of information that needs to be shared. I think that we should, we, meaning the school district, the superintendent and staff mostly, is participating in presenting to the chambers, presenting to PTA groups, a town hall, if that's what it takes, to bring everyone together that has questions, and making sure that those are answered before the board makes a decision. Like we already have all that information, so now we need to share that with the public and let them see what the vision is, but also get their feedback on how that's going to affect their families.
So what would be up for approval at the March board meeting, in 3 weeks? Because while this looks good, I'm apprehensive about, just jumping all in with this. So I'm just curious, like, you said the master plan is what we're voting on?
Correct. It would be the proposal from the architect to do the master plan, which includes the pre-K-8. It includes Jensen Beach High School, and then it includes the long-range plan, which is the 5, 10, 20-year plan.
Yeah,
Right,
And
so what we would be approving for the public is we are not approving a pre-K-8 at Indiantown Middle. We will not be approving anything until we get input from the public and hear feedback. What we are approving is only conceptually, so that the architect can be able to formulate something that can be presented to the community, so they can see what it's going to could potentially look like. So we're not voting on anything. We're not voting that it's a done deal. It is just conceptually, this is what it could look like, and these are the things that could be in the community. And that it is all subject to change based on input from the community.
Correct. So just that little bit of clarity, the master plan is a little bit deeper dive than my diagram, but it actually reviews the size of the school and things like that. But the actual design of the school would have to come back at a later point when we do the RFQ process. And then we would actually hire an architect to actually do the K-8, the pre-K-8 design. This is strictly a conceptual master plan, but it gets a little more detail and a little more answers to everything, and a little more clarity. But it's just strictly a master plan. You
I
guys
think
can
it's
decide to
important.
act on it or not act on it, or revise it, or whatever you want to do to it.
I think it's important for people to actually see it, because
Correct.
sometimes it's hard to imagine. And so I think that's important. Ms. Russell?
I was gonna say that, you know, I've had quite a few people ask me when I'm out in town in Warfield, or out in Indiantown, that what's going on? Are we gonna have a town hall? When is the town hall going to be? But I did ask our parent liaison at Warfield on Friday afternoon to please compile a list of all of the concerns that you're hearing from our parents that you speak with daily. And so she is doing that, and I know she's got a list, so she'd be happy to share it whenever you would like to talk to her.
Yes, that would help staff as well, because we can begin to put together answers for those questions, and gives us a great starting point, especially if it addresses the concerns coming right out of the community.
Well, and I know we're hosting a parent event next week. I think it's next week. So anything that we can share at that point in time too, any opportunities in the community, I think we should all be letting the superintendent and staff know when those opportunities are, even if it's 5 parents, because the ones that show up at those meetings are typically the ones that are the most engaged, and they have the voice with the rest of the community. So I really think it's important. So I'll send some dates. We're having some family events coming up. So we'll let the superintendent know when those are, and hopefully someone from the staff can come and, you know, talk about the benefits. Any other questions or comments? All right, perfect. Thank you all very much.
We have a
Oh.
few,
We
more
have
slides, if that's
Sorry,
okay. We
sorry.
just want
I'm
to
like,
give
pushing
a
you
little
out.
more.
Brian's pushing me along here.
Okay.
He's gotta
I'll
get
talk
to
fast. Just a little more
baseball
detail.
practice.
We had been asked about the feeder pattern. So the
Oh,
feeder
yes.
pattern for Indiantown would be that in pre-K and Head Start, that would be at the Indiantown pre-K 8 building, not at a separate location. The K-8 would be at the Indiantown pre-K to 8, and then grades 9 through 12 would be at South Fork High School. So under this plan that we're speaking of, the proposal, that would be the feeder pattern. And then, of course, that allows time for us to see what's happening in Indiantown. It's really exciting. Every time I go out there, there's more growth, there's more going on. And so that gives the opportunity for us to see what we might want to do with the property at that point. And then transportation, we were asked about that as well. So Director Spires put together some information, and we would consolidate bus routes for Warfield and Indiantown into a total of 5 routes. There are currently 8 routes in Indiantown. We would be able to, because of the proximity to the schools and the fact that we're going at one time, we would be able to be a little more efficient with our bus routes. The model that she would propose ensures full K-8 student coverage while reducing duplicate runs. In other words, we make the run for the Warfield run, and then we tend to make the similar run for the middle school run. The elimination of 3 routes, you can see the cost savings that would be with the driver hours and maintenance costs. And then, of course, transportation would maintain the appropriate staffing, the ride times, and bus availability for that.
So I just have one comment about that. One of the big concerns is elementary school students crossing State Road 710. For people that don't know, State Road 710 is one of 2 SIS roads in Martin County, and the other one is I-95. So that tells you a little bit about the traffic on State Road 710. So I think it's really important that while the 2-mile rule is in place, I think we're going to have to, really talk about how students are going to get from Indiantown across, it's called Uptown across to that campus safely. And in my mind, it should be on a bus. There are crossing guards at one point where you cross 710, and that's it. So I think that we're going to have to I don't know if that cost savings took that into account, but that is a major concern for me, and I'm sure that that will come up as we get out in the public and educate the public. Oh, Ms. Roberts, sorry.
So your annual savings of 55,906.78 is pretty precise. Did our CFO have any input in that? That just seems like if you're reducing 3 routes to just be saving 55, so we would keep all the drivers and just get rid of three. I mean, that just doesn't make any. Mr. Morrison, did you have any input in any of this? The savings for transportation?
I believe they worked with the transportation department to get those numbers.
Yes, so I can share with you, it was a full route eliminated at 7 hours.
So rather than doing that, if we could just have Mr. Morrison at some point look at that to kind of give us an update of things, since he is our CFO, rather than having our transportation person come up.
And I think that's a very cursory approach, and this is good. This is great for the first shot at it, but we're going to get a lot of feedback and input. So I think, you know, as we can get a lot more detailed as that, as the questions and all of that come up.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we will transition to Jensen Beach High School. We know that we have had, this is our most requested school for school choice. They have been running over capacity, so over 100% fish capacity for quite some time. And we anticipate that to continue based upon the current choice numbers and the wait list that they maintain right now at Jensen Beach High School. As of the date that this presentation was put together, we had 124 students. I believe that has risen to 136, if I have that number correct, students, 137 students who have applied for school choice for next year for Jensen. And so when you look at the number of students matriculating up through the grade levels, those students who are zoned for Jensen, and then those students who've applied for choice, we will have a very overcapacity Jensen Beach High School. And so one of the goals that you just heard Mr. Sechrist mention is through the work with Mr. Tursilla is to take a look at what is available at Jensen Beach High School, and I'll turn it over to Mark to share.
So currently, we would have Renee Tursilla look at this site and basically look at South Florida water management, what those requirements are, and then the challenge, the opportunity we have with this site is it's one of our smallest high school sites. And so we are trying to protect all the practice fields, all the play fields. So there's going to be a minimal amount of land left that we could put actually classrooms and or portables in. So we've got to get a handle on that, and Renee will be able to review all the permitting and all that through South Florida to see what we are allowed to build on, because everything to the right of that diagram is a huge retention pond, so that's unbuildable land. So the school is actually on the left side of that whole retention area is mapped around that area. So it is a challenge, and like I said, it's one of our littlest areas for high school, because the other two high schools are a lot bigger as far as land and real estate. So it'll be a challenge that he can take on and help me walk through that. But we will report back to the board what we find and what's available.
Ms. Roberts.
Thank you. So your 124 wait list that's gone to 137 now, have you been contacting them to see if any of them want to move? Like change to their second choice or to go to Martin County High School? That's question number one. Question number two is, I understand you have 2 classrooms that you're looking at opening up, which will alleviate some of that. Is that correct? You're looking at me like that's not correct.
We were talking about moving 2 portables there to create 2 additional classrooms. That would be dependent on what Mr. Tursilla comes up with.
So is Mr. Tursilla going to come up with something before school starts next year? So
that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
So that'll be temporary until the new construction, till we get to a point to do the permanent stations that are not portables. Yeah.
And that will be, yes, certainly a challenge for the architect, because looking at this area down here is what we believe to be the buildable area. and you see its comparison to the buildings here, it's a very tiny space. So all of this is the detention pond, and then this could be buildable space, which is not very large. And if we put portables here, then we run into the challenge of you now have portables in a space that you'd be building some kind of a permanent if you're looking to build something permanent. So that's why we're looking to the architect to bring us back that information as quickly as possible, and that was mentioned as part of the work that is before the board in 2 weeks at the board meeting.
And so can we please look at vacant spaces, vacant classrooms by period? So I know that there's a lot of vacant space, especially in our high schools, because a lot of kids leave in the afternoons. So how can we utilize, when a classroom is empty, how do we utilize that? So how do we create something that the teacher's moving and the kids are just going to a classrooms, sort of like in college, but their technology, if whatever they need is there to kind of move into that? We have so much, and when we talk about it, makes me a little crazy when we talk about the need for extra parking at Martin County High School, and I drive by in the middle of the day at 11 o'clock in the morning, and the parking lot is half full. So we don't really need more parking. We need more parking at one point of the day, but the rest of the day, it's not full. So I think that's the same with our classrooms. So how do we better utilize that empty space so we don't necessarily, but it may mean that a teacher doesn't have their own classroom all day long. They may have to move to another classroom for another class. So I'm just thinking of it more like a college kind of campus concept, so that we're utilizing that without building more buildings that are very expensive to build. Ms. Pritchett?
The word portables gives me a chill because they're temporary and then they become permanent. And if we need more space, we need a building that's larger. I don't think portables are the answer because they become permanent and then you don't do anything. It just stays that way. And I don't want to be portable dependent. I guess that's the best way to put it. If we could try to steer clear of portables, unless it's an emergency situation. If a building is deteriorating and you need a portable to move kids, but to put portables in to accommodate more students, that I don't think is the answer. That's just my personal opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then just to sum up the property appraisals, I believe you've all seen the 4 sites that have been appraised, and we would recommend, if you're going to look at, based on what you heard this evening, if there are additional appraisals recommended so that you have an idea of what properties are worth. The 2 that would be recommended next would be the Head Start Perkins Center and the lot across from Moorfield, which is currently the Migrant Center. That may be a little ways down the road because those services, we would anticipate all of those services that are currently held there would move into the PK8, that hub that you mentioned, where all those services would be located. So those would be 2 additional properties that people might be interested in.
Are there any other questions from the board? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along to school board policies. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on any of the school board policies that are advertised for today's meeting? Okay, seeing none, we will go right into 6.01, which is policy 1124, 3124, and 4124, drug-free workplace. Any questions from the board? Okay. 6.02, 1129, 3129, 4129, conflict of interest. All right. And just so the public knows, these are, this is our first look at these policies. They will come back to the board again. And there will be additional times for the public to comment on these if you see something in them that concerns you. All right, 6.04 and 6.05 were both removed. Item 6.06, which is policy 2266, non-discrimination on the basis of sex in education and activities. Any questions? 6.07 is policy 2410, school health services. Any questions? 6.08 is policy 2431, .06, name, image, and likeness in athletics. This is a new policy. Any questions? 6.09 is policy 2455, dropout prevention and academic intervention programs. Any questions? No. Item 6.10, policy 5200, attendance. Ms. Roberts.
And so I see that we changed from the initial spreadsheet for page 4, we're going to change the local police to local law enforcement, correct? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is, what was that, 6.12? 6.12, which is policy, we already saw policy 6.11, which is policy 5514 and 7514, which is the personal transportation devices. 6.12, drug prevention, 5530, questions? 6.13 is student discipline, policy 5600. Any questions? 6.14, 7544, use of social media. That's a new policy. Ms. Roberts.
Yes, I think the thing that's missing is on page 4 of 5, after we've selected option 5 and 9, we need to check at the bottom the review period, which I'm presuming is as necessary. Correct?
Yes, that should be option 9.
No. It's, you selected 5 and 9, and then you skipped 10 in the end of the options, and then underneath that, right above the statute reference, it talks about it will be reviewed and updated?
Yes, as needed.
As needed, correct? Thank you.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, 6.15, which is policy 8407, safe school officers. Any questions? And item 6.16, 8800, religious ceremonies and observances. Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none. Open to the board. Ms. Russell?
I was just going to say congratulations to the 6 teams advancing to the Florida Odyssey of the Minds state tournament. We had Jensen Beach Elementary, Martin County High School, Jensen Beach High School, Felix A. Williams Elementary, Crystal Lake Elementary, and Hidden Oaks Middle School. So congratulations, great job.
Perfect. Ms. Roberts?
I'd really like to thank Dan and Lauren and Paige for their presentation that they made. I think that it was very understandable. I think it's understandable to both the public and to the board members, and I think it provides a great deal of transparency, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Moriarty?
I just want to thank the Boys and Girls Club of Martin County for hosting their Youth of the Year celebration. It was a wonderful event and celebrated some wonderful students, and it was a pleasure to be in attendance, and many of us were there as well, and kudos to them for putting on another fantastic event.
Ms. Pritchett? All right. Thank you very much. This was a great informative meeting, lots of really great stuff. We covered a lot. And with that, go home and enjoy your families. This meeting is adjourned.